Hey everyone, welcome to the Stockton Holistic Chamber of Commerce. I'm Austin McLeod. Today I have Yemaya here today. We're going to be talking to you about money and energetic money and ditching your money story if you have one.
Yes.
Do you want to give a little background? You've been on before interviewed, but like what's new, what's going on, what's happening?
Yeah. So I'm constantly having people say, how do you do it? How do you have money fall out the sky? How are you able to have these opportunities? So, most recent example, a couple weeks ago, somebody was like, hey, will you go with me to Oregon and Washington? And it was an immediate fuck yes, right? So I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then not even a week later, somebody was like, hey, there's an opportunity to do some learning. We'll call it a retreat. And I was like, okay. And they were like, yeah, we leave in 2 days and it's for almost 2 weeks. And I was like, fuck yeah. Where old me would have been like, oh, do I have enough money? Do I have the resources? Where am I going to stay? How am I going to get there? Oh my gosh. And my job, like, I can't tell my job 2 week or 2 days notice. I'm leaving for 2 weeks, right? But now all I do is I go, hey, can I go? Yeah, I think you can. Okay, great. Right. And so that's part of the money story is I don't live in lack mentality. I don't live in having to report to a boss. Obviously, I still have to be responsible. I have the three businesses, but
Yeah.
it's a different life altogether.
So like, well, it sounds so easy for you, right? And I think others have made that same comment, but like,
Yes.
what kind of work did you have to do with like your mindset or body set or spirituality to like get to a place where you are now of money falling out of the sky?
Yes.
Because I've seen it happen. So like it's all of a
Right.
sudden some other deal closes or something happens or like so I've seen you in action before.
Right. I love that you have had front row seat because then you can talk to how it's not just in my head. And sometimes even I don't see it and you're like, hello, this has happened. I'm like, oh yeah, huh, that did. So yeah, there's layers to it all, right? But at the end of the day, it boils down to a few things. So one, I think the biggest lesson I've learned recently is that until you fix the relationship you had with your parents, you're going to mirror that relationship everywhere else. And money is a relationship, it's an energy, right? And so clearing those blocks, first of all, that's one thing. Then there's a lot of limiting beliefs that we have, right? People have them from their culture, from whether they're a woman, from so many different things. Christianity, there's, I think, a verse that says money is the root of all evil or something like that, right? And so, especially a lot of times, people in the healing community are told, oh, you shouldn't charge for that. I'm sorry. I, like most healers, have taken a lot of courses. We've paid a lot of money. Most Reiki programs, you're not paying less than $2,000 to get certified to be a Reiki master. Typically, some are even five. I've even heard of some that are 10. And it's an energetic exchange. We have to get that back. It's like saying, oh, this doctor went to college, but they shouldn't charge, right? And so it's all about changing our money stories and believing we deserve it. Because if you don't believe you deserve it, it's either not going to come or it's going to come and it's instantly going to go away. And then there's other little secret tips like feng shui. That's in the class.
Of course, yeah, because you're launching a new class coming up. When does it start? Like in a couple of weeks or a
In a
week?
couple weeks. Yeah, I postponed it because I decided to take that impromptu trip or two. So, yeah.
So it starts like the end of April or so.
Yes.
And then so people need to like DM you to like set up an appointment to figure out if like it's a good fit. I think you said you had like a questionnaire or something.
I do. I have a questionnaire because the last thing I want to do is have people come in and they're not really ready. And now I've learned how to identify that, right? Because if you get people who aren't truly ready, then what happens is they blame you and the program, and it didn't work, and I spent this money, and I don't need that reputation in my life, right? So I want people who are energetically aligned and prepared. Not that you've already done the work, obviously, that's what we're going to do, but there's people who say they're ready, and there's people that are ready.
Right. Also, like with a couple of weeks to go, maybe they could get ready in a couple of weeks, but it's
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. And like sometimes you got to clear out like spiritual blocks or mental blocks, or maybe there's something going on in your life that you need to tidy up before you start something like that, or like
Yes.
shit. That's we're all speaking from our own experience of
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, like I want to do that, but I really should finish this. Or maybe it's like, oh, by doing that, I'll be able to finish those things.
Right.
You brought up a few things that made me think of other things, which is go figure.
Right.
So you talked about relationship with parents and money. And I remember when I was doing some human design with Maureen, you met Maureen before.
Yes, love her.
Yeah, me too. She said often your relationship with your mother is about your relationship with money. So she asked, like, how do you feel your mom loved you? Like, was it enough, not enough? Did you have plenty? Like, and also if you instantaneously think like, oh, I had enough. Okay, well then you have enough money. But was it actually enough or was it actually a lot? And so it's like you have to dive in of like your perception versus her perception versus the reality of it. And so that's something that I work through with like, oh, I thought it was enough. And then I'm like, oh no, it was plenty. And that's
Right.
changing my mindset around money because then I'm like, then there's a worthiness piece, that's which
Right.
you hinted about. And so
Right.
I thought that was really interesting. That came up in an astrology reading. Like,
Nice.
okay,
Yeah, it's all relative, right? And sometimes we go in phases, right? Because it can depend, like you can be going and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't deserve, and then you crash, right?
yeah.
Or it's actually pretty funny. So I will say, like, I grew up in the hood, but I was very spoiled. I was an only child to the point that for some reason Shelly thought I had a nanny. I don't know where she gets that thought from.
That's
But I
funny.
was cracking up and I was like, wait, what? And she goes, well, you grew up wealthy, right? And I was like, no, no, definitely not, right? And she was like, oh, I just thought it was always like this. And so it was really funny to me. And I was like, oh, okay, well, at least I'm clearly in that frequency of abundance. But I've had my challenges with money throughout the years, right? One of it just from being in that masculine where I felt like I had to take care of myself, and then where I was being a brat and not wanting to take my parents' help, right? Now, when I look at everything, if I look back, I can see where I was being the asshole child, right? And where I was deflecting their blessings just because of the stories I was playing in my head, which then spiraled me down into lack, right?
Right.
And so I went through things in my marriage. We claimed bankruptcy. Then I was a single mom and I was living paycheck to paycheck, and sometimes not even that because I was getting payday loans. And then I was doing really well. And then I got a Mercedes. And then a lot of family members were talking crap and they were like, oh, she must be a drug dealer, or oh, how is she doing that? And then so I believed that I didn't deserve it again and it crashed. And I lost literally everything I owned, literally everything I owned, and then rebuilt again, right? Claimed bankruptcy, rebuilt again. And so there's those highs and lows until you deal with those core roots. And now I feel like I'm in a place where I'm like, no, we're not doing the crash
Yeah,
again.
we
Now
don't
I
need
know
that
better.
again. Like, we're gonna call in the air tanker to refuel midair.
Right.
We don't need no crashes anymore. Like,
That's right.
but that's like you talked about things that often come up with shame spaces for people, like
Yes.
bankruptcy or losing it all or whatever. And like you
Right.
have to radically ask to radically receive. And you're like, when you're calling a tanker and be like, yo, bring me some fuel. And you might
Yes.
have to ask and be like, hey, everybody, like, can you help me out right now? I have like a little thing I need to navigate, right? And
Right.
I've seen you radically ask online.
Yes.
You'll ask people and be like, "Hey, everyone, I'm trying to do this. Who wants in?" And so I recently did that too because I was like, "Okay, you got to radically ask to radically receive."
Right. And
That's
people will show up because people's nature is to help.
oh
And
yeah,
people's nature is to be in community and in tribe. And as long as you're living in your divine purpose, you're asking from the heart, and you're giving from the heart when you're not asking, then it all comes full circle.
right. So like earlier, you brought up something that made me think of. We've talked about this before: doing things for money versus being things for money. And
Yes.
like we've all been taught like you gotta work hard and you gotta do all this shit and grind do like you mentioned with single mom of like doing it all and I got the
Right.
Mercedes and everything's great. And it's like then like you start to not be able to hold it because
Right.
you're maybe acting out of alignment or you're not in your true self theme. But
Right.
then your class and what you're doing now is like shifting towards being yourself. And as you
Yes.
be yourself, just more comes to you.
Right. Yeah.
S-
And abundance is literally, right? So anything above what our basic needs are abundance, right? But
Right.
everyone has a different view of abundance, right? So abundance to me could be having a house and a car and I don't know, a boat, for example. But there are many people who live like the van life, right? And they're perfectly happy and their needs are met, right? I met a gentleman in Arizona who was homeless, but he actually didn't need to be. His family was filthy rich. He was just happy being on the street. Like that was his
Wow.
happy place. He loved being in nature. He was very educated. Like we had some really deep talks and people would be like, "Why are you talking to him?" Nah, nah, nah. And I was like, "Have you ever had a conversation? Like this man is brilliant." And so again, like his basic needs were met. So abundance is different for everyone, but they still won't be able to receive until they remove all the blocks.
Right. Like this might have been in one of, so you've hosted book club a couple of times already, and I think three
Yes.
books. I think this was in the first book, which was A Happy Pocket Full of Money. I think he said this, or we all said this, of like, yeah, you have abundance everywhere,
Yeah.
and you can have abundance and lack. And
Yes.
when I heard that, I was like, oh shit, like you're literally creating the reality of lack and you're having an abundance of lack. And I was like, oh shit, like you got to flip the script on that. And how do you do that?
Right.
It's like
You
there's
have to be
the,
so specific. Yeah.
right, that
Mhm.
mental work that you've been talking about that you want to do in your class, right?
Yes, mental and heart space, right? Because
Right.
again, self-love, forgiveness, all the pieces, it's like a puzzle that unless you have all the pieces, you can't see the whole picture perfectly. You might have an idea of what it looks like, but if there's something missing, you're still not quite sure. You can use your imagination, but you're not fully tapped in.
Well, that's part of like being in community of people who are like trying to do it together is to
Yes,
attract and be, if somebody sees like, oh, hey, do you think maybe you should twist that piece a little bit and then it would fit? They're like, oh my God, I didn't see that. And then suddenly there's like this excitement and you're
right,
attracting more abundance and being on a different frequency than a frequency of shame, hiding in your house. Oh my God, whatever.
right. And like I know I can say as far as the bankruptcies, right? So the first one, when I was married and we did the bankruptcy, because there was a lot of influence from the parents, or not influence to do it, but influence not to do it, right? So there was a
Right.
lot of shame space. When I did it in 2011, I had already lost everything. Like all the material things, I already lost them. So I had already experienced the loss. And so to me, I'm like, why am I going to pay people for things that were destroyed? Right. And I'm like, so like the Benz got destroyed and the everything in the home got destroyed. So why am I going to pay for things that were destroyed and be in this shame space? And why am I going to be all frazzled to try to make ends meet when I have literally nothing and I'm watching at the time, that's when I used to watch television, I'm watching all these shows about rich people who have all these businesses and they just claim bankruptcy and start over, right? Corporations, businessmen,
Right.
our fucking president right now, right? And so I was like, if they can do it, I can do it, right? And not that I'm going to keep doing it every other year or whatever, but it was a opportunity for me to start over with no shame, a clean slate. I got to come back. I got to spend time with my father, who at the time was ill. I got to reconnect with him, have a relationship, which we did not have, and actually get to know him as a person because we think of our parents as our mom and our dad, all the mistakes they made, all the things they didn't do, all the things they did, but we don't think of them as people, right? And if you can tap into that and go, oh shit, like he was just human and doing the best he could do too, right? And having those adult conversations, like that was a game changer. But if I would have been worried about having to go back to work and so I did go back to work pretty quickly, even though he didn't want me to go because he wanted me there at the house and we were reconnecting and all that. And I did stay longer than I needed to because we were reestablishing, but I had that comfortability to do that because I just let go. I let go to let in.
Yeah. And like just going with the flow of the river, like you run into a rock and like, damn this rock and this rock is in the way, rah, rah, then you're stuck in your shit. But
Right.
if you're like, oh, I'll just turn around this rock, and then suddenly you see another opportunity, and you're like, oh, that's why I
Right.
hit the rock, because there's something over there that I needed to see.
Right. And we're made to flow. Like we're 70% water. We're not supposed to get stuck on shit. We're supposed to just go with the flow.
Easy for the Pisces to say.
Yeah, true.
But like that's part of everything is like building a system for you to flow into, right?
Right.
Like how
Ah,
do
you and
you
your damn systems, but yes.
well, like how do you move energy? How do you move money?
Right.
A system.
A system. Yeah, definitely.
Like if you want to move water, an aqueduct, pipe.
Yes.
You want to move energy, power lines,
Yes.
or whatever it might be. And so this in my mind is like very similar of like energetic money. Like you have money fall out of the sky. Like I've literally seen it. You're like, shit, I need like fucking $1,500 by the end of the week. What am I gonna do? And then you start like you'll put out like you'll let your people know like, hey, I have specials on my stuff, or I'm doing something new, or whatever, or maybe a deal closes, or
Right.
like I've seen it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait, what? And then Shelly's always like, what? How'd that happen? Because Shelly has grown up in a family where it was always like, do things for money, grind, do, and like that. And to some extent for me too, but my parents were a little bit more on the entrepreneurial side. And so
Mm.
I knew in a time in my life where I was being myself and I was making a lot of money. And then I got scared and didn't believe in myself.
Right.
Then I had to do things for money and it was like fucking exhausting.
Right. Yeah, my parents actually were very also in the do mentality, right? Now I call it the do mentality, but because it's shit, it's bullshit. You don't have to work so hard. But my dad worked for the same company for 42 years and only called in sick twice. My mom didn't have to work, but she hustled. Like she had her little side thing she did. She sewed, she cooked, and people paid for that. So I honestly believe I learned my entrepreneurial stuff from my mother inadvertently, which is funny
Oh,
because I always was like, I don't want to be like my mom. But she's the one who would make money fall out the sky. Like if I look
oh,
back, she's the one. And then my uncle was always in like MLMs or different kind of opportunities. So I learned that from him as well. And so just combining the two of those, that's how I've gotten into that mindset. And then for a long time, I was stuck in the corporate bullshit aspect. And I'm not saying it's not good for some people. Some people need that structure and it works for them, and that's
yeah,
fantastic. It's not for everyone.
right.
Having a business is not for everyone because it's a lot of moving pieces and it's a lot of faith and hustle. And so
Mhm.
that's not for everyone. But wherever you are, you can be met with abundance regardless of where you're at.
Well, that kind of brings up nerve system regulation of like, okay, you go 9 to 5, you trade your time for a paycheck, and you have stability of that coming in. And there's some instability of like, am I going to be there? Am I not? Am I going to get laid off? Blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a lot
Right,
going on these days. And then AI is coming into it, and it's like, okay, do I learn AI? Do I be rigid? There's the
right,
fluidity or restriction of that. But then you go to be an entrepreneur or you're trying doing your own business. 1 month you might have 10 grand. The next month you might have 10 grand of expenses. And
right,
it's like, where are you at? Are you comfortable with like writing into the negative a little bit, knowing that things are coming? Like where's your nerve system calibration at to hold that? Like, do you have the
right,
capacity to ride that wave? Speaking of water, right? If water is
right.
moving, like can you hold the dips? If you can't hold the dips, then just ride the top, but you gotta like keep the fuel in the boat and keep moving and
Keep the paddles going. Yeah.
yeah, keep paddling. It's just like finding Nemo. Just keep swimming, just keep
Yep.
swimming, just keep swimming. And that's where people like get on the hamster wheel and they just like then they're like, wait, what am I doing?
Yeah, but and the other thing I tell people is abundance isn't always even money, right? And so there are times when it could be one of those months where I didn't close something or it was low on clients. And I'll have people just ninja drop food for no reason. Like I didn't say I was hungry. I didn't say I needed food. I have a shit ton of food in the cabinet. Now I didn't want to go home because I'm in grind mode. And literally people will call and be like, "Hey, have you eaten today?" And I'm like, "Oh, what time is it? Oh, no. Okay, I'm gonna DoorDash something." Oh, okay. or people will just bring food, right? And to me, like that's abundance because a meal these days is like 15, $20, right?
Yeah.
And or things that I've maybe needed, and they'll just drop it off. And sometimes I ask, sometimes I don't even have to ask. And like when my father died, and I was like, okay, how am I going to pay for the after dinner? Because at the time I was working and I had taken, I want to say at least a week off for everything. And I remember going, okay, Dad, I know what you want. I'm going to get it done. I don't know how, but it's going to happen. And then I looked down and there was literally money coming like down the street in front of me,
Like tumbling like a tumbleweed.
like tumbling like a tumbleweed. And
Whoa.
I looked down and I laughed and I scooped it up and I looked around and there was nobody. Now I started laughing and I was like, thank you, Dad. And it
Yeah.
was a few $100s. It was like a
Really?
hundred and some 20s and some 50s. And I looked around. So it's not like I didn't do my due diligence and make sure it didn't belong to someone. And so I was just like it literally fell out the motherfucking sky. So that's why I've always had that saying that money falls out the sky.
That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
like there's definitely been times in my life where I've picked up change off the ground, and there's other times where I spill change or I leave change or I give money out or whatever. But like,
Well, and you guys are real good at generating abundance and sharing, right?
yeah, I
So,
think that's like something we're leaning more into and like
hmm
learning and like letting it flow and letting it go and all that, which is why I was like curious to talk to you a bit about your upcoming class because I think a lot of people like I think they want to know how you do it. Like I see people like interacting with your content or interacting with you in person and like they want to know how to do it.
they do. I have all the
And,
secrets.
and I want to know too.
Well, you already know. You already know. You're coming to the class.
Yeah. I I guess I lost track of my thoughts, which sometimes happens.
Usually it's me, so it's
Yeah. Well, that's the duality of all of it.
right.
It's like building structure for yourself, being able to flow. Like when I heard about money and like you have a pipeline of money, and if you have all these energy leaks of like credit card payments or this or whatever, or you owe people money or people owe you money, it's like energy leaks. There's like the cord cutting ceremonies that you do too. There's
Yes.
like there's been a lot of work in that, at least for me, of like, okay, can I let go of people that owed me money? Right.
Yes.
Like, and I'm like, oh, because some people owed me like four figures or five figures of money. And I was just like, I just got to let this shit go.
hmm
Then what's funny is like, as soon as you let it go, like more money fucking shows up. And it's like, what, where did that come from? And like, there's that trend online of like hashtag girl math, which is really funny to watch on TikTok. But like, I see it too. Like, there's the energetic behind it of like, you let go of it and then something else shows up.
Well, yeah, because if you have your fist closed, right? Because you're holding on to something that you're probably not going to get. Like if you loan this money and people are avoiding you or people are not honoring their commitment and it's been months, years, whatever, and you're holding it, right? So you're holding the energy here. You can't open up your hands to allow more blessings to come in. And then you're holding that energy like right here. So you're not in gratitude. And all blessings come from gratitude. So if you're holding anger, if you're holding resentment, if you're holding any of those things, you just can't allow that frequency to enter. And so it's better to let it go. The universe is going to go, oh, wow, look it. He gave with his heart, with honest intentions. That person took advantage. So now you have a karmic debt of positivity coming towards you. And then they don't. And oh, well, that's their journey, right? But your
Right.
journey now is to replace and uplift because you gave from the heart and you lost.
Right. And like, oh, I got the chills when you said
I
that.
love when that happens.
Me too. So I'm like just thinking about all these things of like one time I was at In and Out and like I spent my last $5 by giving it to a former student I ran into because like, he was hungry and I was like, well, here's $5. And I was like, you know what? It's okay. Like this will be good for him at this time because he needed it.
Right.
And then sure as shit, like an hour later, somebody calls me and was like, hey, I need you to do this and I'll pay you $100. And I was like, okay. So it's like you release and
Right.
something, but you have to also not get caught up in the attachment of like, oh, I'm releasing, so I must be getting something. It's like just
Right.
I'm just it's just
You're just
happening.
being.
just being.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like,
Because if you give with expectation, then there's still energetic ties, right?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked your cord cutting class and meditation of like imagining just sealing it up and sealing up the pipes and getting, because if you want to move a lot of water, if you want to move money, like and get paid and honored for your gifts, skills, and talents, you need the pipeline running well. And part of
Yes.
that is like chipping out the sludge and like cleaning that garbage out and like flowing it through. Or sometimes you got to like get the roto rooter in your bullshit and like clean it out and then check the pipes, do a little cord cutting, patch it all up, and be like, and this is part of the system of like
Right.
building a system that flows for you. And to your point earlier of like some people are like, oh, it's a spiritual gift and I'm a starving artist. It's like, well, then you're attracting exactly that to you.
Right.
And it's like, well, you go to a mechanic and they do great work on your car. Are they doing a mechanic or are they being a mechanic? Right.
Right. Right.
It's like, do you want to step into whatever, whoever you are?
Right. Because there's nothing that says I can be an artist and I have to be broke, right? That's something that people have coined, but look at the paintings that sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? And
Yeah.
so those artists aren't starving, right? And so it's some term that was coined from who knows where, but I believe that if you're living in your true purpose and authenticity of art, like somebody's going to reward you and pay you for that, but you have to believe that you deserve it. And unfortunately, so many artists are wounded, and that's how they're expressing themselves, right? So until they get to that point, and knowing it's not a one-time thing, like I didn't just cord cut one time, right? I'm 54 fucking years old. Like I've had a lot of things I've had a cord cut with. And then sometimes I think I cord cutted with it and it comes back and I'm like, oh, but you have to be open to recognize it and be coachable, right? Whether it's by your own psyche, whether it's by someone else, instead of being offended that someone said something or just being in so much ego that you can't see it. You have to be open again to receive mentally, your hands, your heart, just everything.
Yeah. What I know you're gonna go over that stuff in the class, but like if somebody like wants to tap more into getting money to fall out of the sky, like who are they? Like where are they at? What kind of journey are they in? Like what are they open to, or what does that look
Sure.
like?
So, the ideal person for this class is going to be someone who already recognizes that they have patterns and they're ready to break those patterns. This is going to be someone that's tired of living paycheck to paycheck, but knows that if they just tweak something, they can have that frequency. They just don't know where to start because they've never been given the tools, right? It's for someone who maybe is just hearing about this for the first time, but is so open that they're like, okay, yeah, I got this. I'm ready to do this, right? But it's literally anyone who doesn't want to stay in their self-sabotaging money story, right? Because a lot of times, and you can identify with language the people that are constantly in the same story, and then you give them a suggestion, whether it's health, whether it's wealth, whether it's whatever, and they're like, yeah, but, or, oh, I tried that and it doesn't work. Oh, nothing works, or woe is me. And if it constantly, you can tell in the language when you give them a nugget of something, right? Something positive or something that'll work or something tried and true. If they will shut it down without even saying, "Oh, I'll try," then they're not ready, right? Because in their mind, they've already they've been defeated. But
Yeah, it's
anyone
like
who's open to opportunity usually will be okay. And then of course there's a little more into the language, but
yeah.
they have to be at least open to receive.
Yeah, one of my coaches in the last couple of years, she always said aligned action. I'm like, what the
Yes.
fuck is aligned action? And then
You
it's
taught me that.
yeah, well, because I learned it from her. And after a while, what I realized is like you have some sort of idea, you lean into like how your mind, body, and spirit feel about that idea, and then you take the aligned action steps to make it happen.
Right.
So it's like you're like, okay, even for you, you're like, wow, I would really like this money for this certain thing, whatever. And then you like check in with yourself. You're like, okay, am I worthy for that money? Yeah. What does it look like? Is it coming in? Like, how would I do it? Okay, I could make a couple offers. I could do a couple, I could ask a couple friends, and then boom, the money showed up. But you have to do the line steps. You can't just like wait around. Right.
Right.
So
Sometimes. Well, because
sometimes.
sometimes it's happened where I don't do anything and it just literally
Well, I
comes. So
also noticed something else that like you're really good at, and Shelly has brought this up too. You're really good at receiving, right?
yeah. Hmm.
So like people tend to want to help you because you're good at receiving the help. What and abundance, like you said, could mean anything. It could be money, it could be help, whatever. Like sometimes you're like, hey, I really need to move this thing. Does anybody have a truck and can they move it? And
Right.
sure as shit, within like 10 minutes, I got a truck. I'll be there in 10 minutes. I was like, whoa, that's awesome. But then
Right.
I've seen you interact with those people and you're like, thank you so much for bringing the truck over. And maybe you pay them, maybe like you have something else going on. I don't know. But like I've seen it in action and I'm like, wow. Or somebody like comes over and you feed people. And it's
Yeah.
like, I like that because it's like you're honoring the receiving.
Yeah.
I think that's really a huge key in like ditching like the shitty money story that people have.
Absolutely.
So like
Yeah.
I have a good example of this. Like I made some content like a week ago. Sometimes I work at the front desk of a metaphysical shop, just hanging out and doing stuff. And I was like, I need, or one of my coaches had said, what if you learned how to receive tips? And I was
Mm.
like, okay. She's like, I know men don't really receive tips in the way that women do, but can you change that narrative? I was like, huh, okay. So I'm at the shop and I sell a few things and some guy gives me like 15 bucks tip. I was like, hell yeah. I'm like, thank you so much. Thank you for appreciating my gift skills and talents, which is getting paid for my spiritual gifts, right?
Right.
I'm
I
like,
love that.
fuck yes. Like that $15 felt fucking amazing, right?
Right.
And I'm honoring that. The next day, and then I made a shitload of content about it because it's not just if somebody tips you $500, it's if somebody, even if somebody tips you like $5 or a dollar, that
Right.
dollar could feel like a lot of money for someone.
Right.
$500 could feel like lunch money for someone else. But like honoring the receiving. And so
Right.
then I was like, hell yeah, thank you. Right.
Yeah.
Then a day later, I'm at a sandwich shop that only takes cash. Some dude walks in. Oh, do you have like tap to pay or the ATM? Does it do that? And I'm like, dude, I'll buy you a sandwich. It's fine. He's
You're
like,
at
well,
Gian's Deli.
yeah. And then he was like, well, I actually need two sandwiches. I need one for my wife. I was like, oh, okay, I'll take care of it. He's like, let me show you. And I'm like, okay, give him my number. And he puts in like the total was 20 bucks, but he put in 30 bucks and sent me 30 bucks. And I was like,
Nice.
hell yeah. Again,
Right.
by a guy. And then
Right.
I'm receiving a tip from another guy. And I'm like, okay, how can we normalize that? Because he was willing to receive a sandwich from me. And I'm
Right.
like, okay, how can all of us ditch that shitty money story of like I would not used to like not let anybody pay for anything of mine.
Hmm.
Like I wouldn't receive. I was like, no, I pay for everything. Trauma response, right?
Right.
Then you're like, wait, hold on. Like there's push and there's pull and like and it's like the ebb and the flow.
Right.
Definitely seen a lot of that from you, and I'm like, oh, that's what she's doing.
Yeah, so I used to be in that, like I said, in that masculine space too, where I didn't receive, I wanted to pay for everything and everybody. And I would say over the last 5 or 6 years, I really learned to receive as well. And so that was a game changer. And I wanted to also say, let me back up real quick. This is the first I'm ever hearing about males not receiving tips as much as women. Like, I don't know, I always tip them equally. So
Well, this was an OnlyFans coach, so
got,
maybe that came into play a little bit.
oh, okay, okay. Because I was like, okay, got it.
But like nonetheless, the message is still the same. It's like, are you worthy to receive money
Right.
for anybody and everybody? And are you willing to receive money for your gifts? Man, like I've done so much free work over time. Recently, I did a 30-minute call with somebody on how to do their cookbook. They literally did exactly what I told them and made 5 grand and didn't even send me a single copy. of a PDF.
Yeah,
And
people will do that.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
people will do
oh,
that.
and I'm like, I was a little butthurt, but then I'm
Yeah,
like, you know what? That is me knowing that my method works.
right.
And I'm like, okay. And then
So
there's
now you
a
can look at that as your, what's it called?
case
Your
study.
model.
Yeah,
Yeah. And now you know it works. So now go and you can go and sell it.
right. And now I'm like, okay. And guess what? I let it go. Two people came and were like, I want you to help me with my cookbook, and I'm going to
Nice.
pay you, and I'm going to give you the first copy. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm talking about. That's the
Yes.
honoring that I'm talking about. Yeah, I like this. And then
Yes.
I've noticed when people honor, respect, and appreciate what I do, I'm willing to do more.
Right.
But when it's not, like, I'll shut down and turn into rock.
Right.
But that's something for me to learn to like work through. I've been working on that, and that takes time.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I shut down, but now I'm more aware, right?
Right.
Because I've given a lot. I've given Reiki classes to a lot of people, just give it away. I used to do Reiki shares every month to a point where it just got too big to handle. Like there'd be 20 people and then I'd be there till midnight and other healers would leave. And I'm like, wait, whoa, okay. And so I've learned to give with discernment. I've learned to give with boundaries, right? Because my love language is gifts. So as a Pisces, I could very easily turn into a doormat and just give. And so the flip side of it has been also learning where there are boundaries, learning where there is that give and take, right? Because otherwise you do have people that will just be taking, and then you that's when you get into frustration and then you get into lack mentality, and so you
Mhm.
just really have to find that balance.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any final thoughts or anything you wanted to share that we didn't talk about yet?
I don't think so. I feel pretty complete. I'm just excited to do this class. Like I said, everyone's always asking how, and so I finally sat down and was like, okay, let me really tap in, because sometimes they were asking how and I really couldn't tell them how because I was like, I don't know, money just fell out of the sky. And then I was like, no, I do know. Spirit, let's put something together. And so I allowed myself to go within for a couple weeks. I started tracking because there's been times in my life where I'll even track like when it comes in, how it comes in, what just happened. Because sometimes it's also just planetary alignment with my sign, but you have to know to be aware. And so, like most people hate Mercury retrograde. I love Mercury retrograde. I make so much money during Mercury retrograde. I don't know why. I don't care. Thank you. Right. But you have to know, you have to track those things and know.
Well,
So I don't know how that was my final thought, but my
Merc,
final
well,
thought is DM me, Money Magic, join the damn class if you want to have more abundance in your life.
awesome. I love it. Send me all the links and I'll put them in when I'll put this on YouTube, and
Okay.
then I'll also clip it up into Reels. And then if anyone's feeling like coming to a holistic Chamber of Commerce meeting for Stockton, please come. Yemaya puts on events, so make sure you join her email list and check out Money Magic class coming up soon.
Oh, one last thing. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, there we
Eh,
go.
there it is. And we love to collaborate with people who are in alignment with our frequency. Austin just energetically knows. I still have to go tap in with my sources that I use, right, as a santera and whatnot. But we do love to co-collaborate. And so I would say if people are interested in doing that, let's also talk about those opportunities.
Yeah, I love what you've said before of flowers that grow together grow much stronger together, or something like that.
Yes, flowers that grow together grow faster. And I learned that from Garen Jones.
Nice.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, any final thoughts before we hit stop?
No, I'm complete for real.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, back on the record for a second.
So I looked down and I'm like, what's happening? I don't remember pushing the button, but this is our conversation from when we started the Zoom. It was recording my voice.
Wait, who? Oh, that's to me?
Yeah,
Oh my
that
God.
was our Zoom, but it was
You
the
should
voice was
send it
just,
and we could put it in Chat GPT and like clean it
I,
all up.
I just did. I don't know how far it got, but
It's
yeah.
like click to expand. It's like, please go read this on your iPad.
That's hilarious.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so Any final thoughts? Or are we good?
No, we're good.
Okay.
We could do this all day.
I know we can. So I'll turn it off.